Welcome to the Domain Name X Show. Okay, so I was confused for a second. Welcome to the DNX Show. Do this every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm one of your hosts, Todd Ryan. My other host is Josh Reason. Isn't that some last name, huh? Reason. Josh is traveling. He's going these British people take a 2-month holiday. He said he's going to drop in. Glad to see Arif's here. Just invited Arif to.
Check, check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sounding good.
Oh,
How's everything going
right
this
on
morning?
my computer. Perfect. It's working this time. I'll let you do the intros and stuff. I'll be quiet for a bit. Just want
Yeah,
to make sure it's
everything's
working.
smooth as silk, but you sound good. I know I now you can create a space on your desktop. You can, of course I have always created them on my phone, but then I do, I sit here, I got some cheap mic and I sit at my desktop and it seems to have worked okay over the years because you catch me, Arif, on domain name law with the other guys. Mine doesn't seem to have many issues. David Michael sometimes has issues, but so is this the first time you're using desktop to be on a space?
I think so. I think I've tried it before once or twice, but it's been a while. And it's more, it was just I think last time when I tried last week, it was just the settings for my browser. So it was probably my end. I just didn't see the pop up on the other. I have too many things open up on my computer.
Yeah, and I try to stream this on YouTube as well, so I do that through OBS. And I noticed this MacBook Air that I use for this stuff. Sometimes it has, I don't know if it's memory issues because of OBS uses a lot of space, and I have so many other things going on. But Arif, so what type of microphone are you on your desktop?
It's just something I picked up a few years ago on Amazon. It's like $100 microphone type of thing, but probably for you guys like a $60 one for US. When I was doing the socials, I think I at one point I go, I need a better microphone. It's not like top of line, but it's just one of those generic higher quality ones, but like not over the top.
Well, great, it sounds good. Like I said, I think Josh is going to be joining us, as I mentioned. I don't know, do people normally take 2-month vacations? Is that just a European thing since he's English?
I don't know. I think maybe he's selling a few domains so he can
Lucky.
take a little bit longer vacation. I don't-
Yeah.
I just I after you sent me the text earlier on, between then and now, I got an email from Afternic and its transfer is already done. So we'll see if I get that email. Hopefully, I'll get paid tomorrow before the weekend. So things are going well on my end too.
I
Ready to
wanted
go.
to, talk about that, talk about a few things. One, Josh was mentioning issue with tips in the U.S. And speaking of traveling, I know I was going to mention a couple things. I see MC is here, and that was about him in that contest for GoDaddy. I think it was Elevate Fund was a name that he bought and sold. It was one that he bought for like 400, I believe. But maybe in a little bit he can come up here because I was going to talk about he also Mike Seiger I'm mentioning he posted on X that name your favorite domain name in your portfolio. And I was looking through that really just now. So it's really embarrassing. I guess mine is LFOD, live free or die. I don't have anything like, something that's great that is a single word that I can say. Of course, it's, this. And I'm lucky to be, part, I say, owner of paynow.com because that's our new company we're launching. But that was originally in Chad's portfolio, and I had to do a bunch of work to get a piece of that. So really, that's still, it's not one I'd say domain in my portfolio. That's the best one I'm associated with. But yeah, I was going to mention some of the favorite domains that people posted, and it's I don't know, embarrassing probably because people don't have any people don't have any good stuff. The good, anyway, and even most of the say great domain investors, they have usually, well, the ones that have more than 5 or say 10 single words, those are the top guys. Those are the guys that have. I was listening or reading about. I think it was George Carricos. Has freespeech.com, and I know he has a bunch of single words, but he said that he got an inquiry on a name of his from three different companies in this past week, and all three companies were billion-dollar companies. And he didn't mention the name, but it's like there's certain folks that have portfolios that really, have several names, and dozens sometimes, that can have single words that are fantastic. But I was going to mention, on the contrary to that, is a lot of people have portfolios, and they might have a few things. You go through their whole portfolio, and there's a few names in there that you realize those are probably 6, 7 figure names. But then a lot of people, you can't stop yourself. You end up having hundreds of names, and not everything is the big time name. And even Drew Rosner posted a couple 4 figure sales that we'll talk about, and we're going to talk about um, era. That is there such thing as a domain addiction? If anybody wants to check out our outline, go to dnxshow.com. Listen, I hope some of you join us on stage. I'll end up inviting, I guess, but just raise your hand, come on up, which tells me, yeah, I'm willing to talk a little, because I want to talk about, other extensions. I know Ish was doing that the other day, talking with people, because I mentioned it too. Is, yeah, there's some folks that are they're pumped about .tech or .bot or .now, because they're invested in those areas, and they're wanting, of course, badly, and they just, want to come up with reasons why why these are different. This may be the one, this may be the extension. Okay, the Booth brothers, and quite a few other people over at Namecheap, they were right about .ai. Something happened there. It seems like, the ones that had great .ai names, those are selling. We'll talk about that too. But anyway, trying to have an open conversation here. It's me and Arif on stage right now. But Arif, I guess let's jump into, well, we'll touch on it, then we'll come back to it. So we don't want to say a lot about it, because I guess tell us a little bit about your sale, but don't give us all the details, and then we'll get back into it after we talk a little bit about domain addiction. So tell us a little
Well,
bit about what you
I
sold.
have to say overall lately, it's been pretty good. I cracked 5 figures in May and in June, and now already in July I had a 5 figure like on the third or something like that at a sorry $5,000 sale on the third. I had a 10K LTO a few days ago. I think it was what day are we today? Thursday. So I can't remember what day it was, but after that, and just now, after between the time you texted me and the time we got on air, I got another smaller one, 3,000. But it's still, those ones, they add up, right? Those are bread and butter ones. They add up, and it's a 5 letter, like, made up, well, brandable type of thing. And I have I've less than 2 dozen of those. I have more than a dozen, less than 2 dozen of those. I used to have a little bit higher proportion of my portfolio, and I never really sold much of them, and it's just it's kind of, now I have to change my mind again, because it's just you know it sold 3,000. It covers all my other ones for, what is it, 10 years, the math says, or whatever it is. So I had 20 of them, yeah, thereabouts. So it's yeah, it's going pretty well for me. I can't really complain, and it's just like little sales here and there. But um, this year, my volume is, well, now it's picked up close to what it was last year. But the numbers I'm selling for are like, I've had, this will be, the LTO is my second 5 figure sale this year, which I've never had more than one in a year. And so it's, I can't complain. And like, the $5,000 sales and $4,000 sales are coming out more often than the 3,000 and the 2.5. I don't really have much price below 2,000. There are a few exceptions of stuff that, probably would drop one day or whatever it is. But yeah, no, things are going well. So feel free to ask whatever you want.
Jeez, I'm impressed, because one, I want to it. You've been adding names to your portfolio, going from 1,500 to 3,500 names over the last year or two. It's quite a
So
bit. So I wanted to ask you, tell us even more specifically. You share, but I guess I don't listen close enough. Is a Okay, so of how you're buying lately, um, are they what percentage are hand registration, and then what percentage are you're getting from expired, and then
I would say my entire portfolio is easily 90% closeouts. So I've had domains for like over 2 decades, right? I had my old music website, like I think I even registered it in '99, and then it was a huge forum. About, well, for the days, it was about 30,000, 35,000 people in my forum. I had my domain then, and I bought a few other domains over time. Because I'm going to build out one day, right? That's what we all say. But I actually did have a build out, and I did do pretty well. Like I interviewed Tiesto and Axwell and all the big name DJs. I interviewed them for my site, and it was pretty good. But just to say, like over the years since then, I've collected some domains, always the intention of building out more than anything else. So as I saw every now and then, seeing domain, it could be valuable, but like I never really understood, domain flipping or the market, and once I transferred, the handful of domains I had to GoDaddy, every now and then I just poke my nose in the auctions out of curiosity, and every now and then I buy one or two. But like it's more just the intention to build out, or I'll use that one day or whatever it is. And over the years, I gotten waves, and by 2016, I found myself with I want to say more than 200, maybe closer to 300, maybe even 300 domains. I'm going to build out one day, and it's like, okay, but like at that point, I'm like, well, what am I doing? I think that's what happens to a lot of people when they start, right? Are you going to build them out one day? But am I really going to build out like 200 domains, right? And a lot of them were probably, microsites in my mind, and that type of thing kind of passed, right? But I wasn't paying too much attention to the industry at all. I was really all over the place a little bit and just buying here and there. But then in 2016, in the summer, end of summer, I remember I was going through GoDaddy auctions, and I saw a bunch of one word or very compound business centric, short 2-word .cos expiring. Like, oh, these are interesting. And I was like, oh, I might get some of these, and like, but then I told myself, you know what? Like, if I go down this, chances are I'm not going to build them out. And so I got to learn about, well, I kind of already had a hunch of how, domain flipping worked, but I just didn't know all the mechanics of it and all the details and where to do this and where to do that. And so, but I jumped down the rabbit hole, right? I joined the forums, well, the main one. And Michael Seiger's in the audience. Since that date, I probably have close to 2,000 hours of Michael Seiger in my ear, right? Because I used to listen and re-listen and go back and listen to the old Sherpas. Same thing with Andrew Allman. Like the two of them, I'm eternally grateful for, because back in 2016, like I was going for big walks with Steamy. You guys know my dog Steamy, and we go for 3 or 4 hour walks, and I could fit in like two Sherpas and two domain name wires, right? And I absorbed information like crazy, and learned some stuff of my own. But I was lucky because I already had experience with domains, and I already had experience as an end user, so that gave me a little bit of perspective. And but then from 2016 to about 2020, I dropped a lot of the ones I had from before. I probably kept a handful, and the handful I'm still going to quote unquote build out one day, but never will. But I went from 2016 to 2020. I went from to up to about 3,000 domains. And at that point, I kind of stopped. I was doing from like 2017 or 2018 to 2020. Many of you might know I was doing my daily lists. I was sharing a list of domains that were for auction as a GoDaddy affiliate on NameCult. And again, 2020, when Mike started the pandemic socials, and I took over from him at one point. I helped Paige with his conference. I just kind of like stopped buying stuff, because it's like when I was going through lists, it was a couple hours a night, and then a couple more hours, well, another hour or so to get things set up on NameCult and whatnot. So I just stopped buying, and there was no real rhyme or reason for it. It was just like, I have 3,000 domains, it's kind of enough for now, and things. I just started making sales a little bit more consistently. I made the mistake of even now of getting the domains but not setting them up right. When I finally got around to repricing my domains at about 3,000, and that was in 2020. I hadn't priced them since I had 900 domains. So like it was probably my first year. So it was probably 3 years. They didn't price my domains, and I had only 800, 900 domains on Afternic. And yeah, I was kind of breaking even those first few years. Even the first year, I know I didn't make money. But if I took the domains for my first year, those are profitable long term, like after the fact. So I'm happy with everything. But yeah, so then I kind of stopped. And then about a year and a half ago, I've been going on these stints of like, a couple months at a time, where I think January, February 2024, I bought, I think it was 350 domains. And then last year, uh, September, October, I acquired, I think it was 700 or 800 domains. And now in the last 10 weeks or so, I've acquired about the same amount. It's kind of weird because GoDaddy's changed their auction platform so that you can no longer, it only shows you the last 500. So I was like, I have no idea how much I have to put them into my spreadsheet. That's what I'm going to do now. I've had a lot of usability, extreme usability errors with GoDaddy, and I'm just, it's time to take a break. Summer's here. I got my dog. We go for big walks. I'm going to focus on my portfolio management. I think the issues I'm having with GoDaddy are so, like, I just access denied errors, and when I try to look for the lists, it gives me errors, and it's pretty bad. But so I took that as a kind of a sign. But now I'm up to nearly 5,000 domains with those little stints of 350, 7,800, and another 7,800 now. And the beginning of the year, it was I wouldn't say it was slow. Volume was slow, but I was making, the sales I was making were good. I, in my head, I still have those 3,000 domains. Now it's 4,000, and really by end of year, it's 5,000. So, I got to make that times $11, plus I have a handful of non.coms, but, still cover my costs. But I mean, the sales are coming through really like at a good clip in the last 2 months or so, just in terms of sales amounts. In terms of volume, it's about the same. But yeah, that's where I am right now. I'm getting close to about 5,000, maybe call it 4.5 to be safe. But yeah, that's where I'm at. And people always say, well, what sort of volume do you need to be consistent? And even at this point, I mean, I've had 3 good months in a row, but that's not the full story, right? It could very well be that in August I get no sales, and that's kind of okay. I longer term with even a few thousand domains, you're not going to be consistent month over month. Like all the people in this industry will say the same thing. You listen to Andrew Allman, he's really good at that kind of stuff. He pays a little bit more for his domains. He's got slightly fewer domains than I do, but he's got a higher sell-through rate because he pays a little bit more for higher quality domains. But he too will say, I think he's at about 3,000 domains or so. Listen to his podcast; he'll tell you the exact amount. But him months over months, you have some months you hear him, he'll have 6 sales, and the next month he'll have like 1 sale, right? And it's like these things happen when you don't have if you don't have tens or hundreds of thousands of domains. And the key answer to that is that it's okay, right? If at the end of the year you're profitable, that's fine. Like for me, the last several years I've been comfortably profitable, and at the end of the year, my sales amounts, my over my costs are pretty much the same thing year over year. I more or less double what it is. And you guys know, like in the past, I had another business that somebody died and there was money misplaced, whatever it is. And domains, like really, there's a lot of money. I was debt quite a bit of money, and domains really pulled me out from that. Now things are like kind of going okay on that side. Unfortunately, you guys know, the other aspect of my life is I'm taking care of 3 family members with mental health issues. One vascular dementia, one Alzheimer's, another one autism, who got into their money and all kinds. Anyways, a long story short is that the other good thing about domains is that I can shut it off at any time, right? My way of doing my domain business is inbound only. So for me, like if I'm buying, yeah, the last couple of months, my Zen time. I like going through lists. It really, it's a kind of a Zen moment for me. It's like yoga for some other people, whatever it is. I like going through lists. It's disconnecting because I go through them very quickly, so my mind really accelerates. I'll jump to Google every now and then, but it's more just going quickly through the list and trying to get through as many as possible, and trying to find the little diamonds in the rough or the needles in the haystack or whatever you want to call it. And for me, that's I've found that's my disconnect time. So it's like, oh, okay, I got a couple hours a night of doing that. Lately, it's a little bit less than a couple hours. It's not like as much as before, but I'm finding good stuff, and it's yeah, I'm very positive about the future of domains for the next many years. So I know many people aren't, but again, it's my portfolio is pretty diverse. I have a few niches here or there, but nothing represents, I think, more than 1 or 2% of my portfolio. Like I probably have like 100 crypto names. I probably have about 100, maybe less than 100, but maybe more than 50 cannabis names. I'm trying to bulk up a little bit more on AI stuff, but that's where I'm at. Sorry for rambling, but that's kind of to give context to where I'm at right now. And It's just been, I've really enjoyed it. But again, it's easier for me to say that because I'm making sales, right? And again, not consistently month over month, but I am pretty consistent year over year. So, that's really where I'm at.
Well, everybody, thanks for joining us. That'll be it for today. Uh,
Sorry.
oh no, Eric, listen, I've got to make fun, but I mean, I really appreciate you being here. And I always hated when people say this. I want to say this to you. Whoa, that's a lot to unpack. I want to unpack some of this stuff. Remember before people would say bullshit like that? Oh, really? Let's unpack everything. Okay, okay, you covered a lot of stuff, and I want to touch on it. I sure hope some of you wise guys in the audience have some things to say. And even if some of you guys are nicer people than I'm mentioning, um, raise your hand and say, I want to say something. I don't, he says a bunch of stuff because I want to talk about sell through rate because that's just the goofiest thing because, but then your 5,000 names, that's, let's say 55,000, 5,000, 50 grand. Now you're starting to spend. I mean, you're really getting up there. I know what it was like. I only got 1,500 names now, about maybe 12 to 1,500. I had 6,500 for many years, and it's just a lot to spend. Basically, you do need to make money if you are, if you're serious about domain investing. If you're somebody who just doesn't mind blowing, 100,000 a year on names, which really, I guess what I'm saying with your renewals and then buying new stuff, and that's not because they're not always going to be the 10, $11, but you're buying a closeout. So many things that you said that I want to, talk about. And one, uh, whether, you're dealing with all these things personally, but yet still on X, you post, I'm willing to help other people that have domain addictions because basically, working at a casino, people do get involved in some things, and we all went through those stages, especially when we were newer domain investors. Sometimes you're like I'm going to go and get this this genre of names. I'm going to just get a bunch of them because they're available now, except I know this is going to get hot and then all these names are going to be wiped up. Or this new extension. And all you folks down there, I see some people with .nows in their stuff. Yeah, I want to talk about, why they love .now. I like it because it's a single, it's one syllable and it's short, but I don't love it. I like it because it's cool in some senses. Am I nearly as bullish? No, not at all on, you know, um, they're crossing their fingers and they're hoping, and that's like with .tech makes sense for certain names. So does .dev and so does even .bot. And .now does too, like take a shit .now. I don't know, things that you need to do real fast. So sometimes they make sense, but is that an extension worth investing in? Well, I'm like, listen, some people are like, I'm a speculator. um, I think it is worth investing in. And then we talk about the different renewals. I checked um, that site that mi.ke/renewal, I believe it is, and I checked for pay.now, right? And it was like $21,000 renewal. Listen, there's so many opportunities that I say Chad and I've had to get other pay now dot other extensions for this price or that price or that. Don't care. We got the .com. People,
Yeah.
one, that's weird. It's a weird name anyway to have as a payment platform because you can't really limit others from using it. You can't at all. There's already dozens, if not more than that, hundreds. There's 700 people that have Pay Now in their domain name, but
But you
there's
have the authority, right? You have the raw paynow.com.
sure,
Like
and
that
that,
you
that
have.
that's what
It's
they,
not
yep.
it's not a trademark thing, but you have the authority. Like, and anybody who thinks of it in the future, if you get to a certain size, are going to think of you,
And,
right?
and,
And
and,
that's
and
what you
plus, we
want.
know we know what kind of traffic we get. But when you're using a generic or basically a descriptive name like that, it's descriptive in that particular field. It's like selling apples on Apple.com. You can do that. You can't protect yourself too much. But it's you were talking about sell through rate. I want to get through a lot of the things that you said and then talk about domain addiction because you sound like you got a little bit of it yourself, Arif. But let's welcome Josh. Hey Josh, what's going on? How's everything going today,
Hey, Josh.
tonight?
What's going on? I heard that Todd and Arif have just been yapping on nonstop, so I figured that I needed to take a break from my
Save us.
vacation and come and save everyone.
Jeez, please. Well, we were asking. So, what is this with these Europeans? And you're from the UK. Was it like a 2 month holiday? Is that what normally every year you guys do? I mean, you see, Siger, he did a
Yeah.
fucking super trip, but he spent like a week or 10 days. He didn't prolong it like you. So, what is the story? Is it
No, this is
every year?
not normal. This is not normal. I've gone longer every single summer. So last summer I did 4 weeks. The summer before I did three. I'm just like pushing the limits. And I'll be honest, I think that this one is going to be slightly uncomfortable, just because my entire family just like expects nothing but activities all day, every day, and it's just extremely hard to work. So, we'll see.
Right. Hey, what are we doing today? You're like fucking day six of fucking day of 45 days. No, but
Of,
anyway, so
yeah,
you're
of,
gone
of
for when did you get back to Florida
363
where it's
vacation.
miserable?
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to NamesCon Miami. To be honest, I'm really looking forward to connecting with some people. I know that there's some people that are not going, that you know should go, in my opinion. Not talking about anyone in particular in the audience. Cough, cough, Mike. But um, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be really good in Miami, and I'm looking forward to meeting people that I haven't met before. So I got that on the mind at the moment. I got my two developers from DNX are coming, and that's gonna be our first time collectively all meeting together as a team, and I'm excited for that. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also excited to jump. I can't stay on for the full session, but I'm definitely excited to catch up with you guys and catch up on some of the news, and maybe bring some input in on some of the things that you guys are talking about today.
Well, since Arif was mentioning a few things, and I do want to mention outside of domains, you talking about tips, and that's pretty funny here in the U.S. But okay, so Arif was talking. He had another. It seemed like he's had three sales here in the last week or two. This month he's having a pretty good month. He's really so
Nice.
if with 5,000 names, and he always talks about, well, I 1% sell through rate, which now would be about 50 names for him. He's profitable.
Mm.
This and this sell through rate doesn't, I can easily
Yeah,
price all your names at $99. What's your sell through rate
yeah,
going to be?
exactly.
Price all your
Sell
names
through rate.
at 90,000. That's what I have my names at, Arif, now.
Yeah,
90,000. And I see, okay, so my sell through rate's down to nothing. But the
sell
point
through
is,
rate.
so it's
But
pricing.
you're
How
right.
do you price to know the right? I mean, pricing is
Yeah.
really everything. I think it's more
S- s-
important than the buy, but
Sell through rate on its own is a meaningless number unless you match it up with your average multiple, right? And over your costs, right? That's really what the math says. Like, sell through rate of 1%, as you said, if you have your domains all priced at $99, you're gonna bleed out like in no time. But at the same time, you can have like this year, I'm certainly gonna have less than 1% sell through rate, but my average sales have really gone up. Right. So it's like it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, what matters is profit. And profit is when you combine your sell-through rate times your multiple, over your acquisition costs, and that's pretty much if it's above one, then you're profitable. We're talking nerd stuff, but really, it doesn't really matter what your sell-through rate is as long as you're making profit overall, right? Again, there's some people who have a much higher sell-through rate than I do, but with lower multiples, but they get the volume, right? So there's people who do outbound who acquire very few domains, sell most of them, and then they make good money, right? But it's a lot more work. But at the same time, as a business, it's a business. They're profitable. They're profitable. So
I
yeah,
mean, it depends what you're buying, right? I
yeah,
mean, that's at the end of the day, right? You
yeah,
need to know what you're buying, and what category that falls into. Do you think like
exactly.
Andy Booth gives any cares at all? Do you think he's ever thought about a 1% sell through
Zero,
rate in his life?
zero care,
Never.
zero care.
Right? He's never thought about it. And the same goes for James. James has a much larger portfolio than Andy, but I can guarantee you he's never once thought about a 1% sell through rate. His sell through rate is likely much higher, and how they divide up their portfolios as well. I mean, I divide my portfolio up differently, and I know that there are some domains where maybe a 1% sell through rate does make sense the way that I'm pricing them. Um, but those exact same domains, if I price them all at, like Todd said, $99 or whatever, sell-through rate would go up dramatically. So I don't know. The 1% sell-through rate is a common example of what could be a profitable way to navigate yourself in a certain area of the domain market. But it's only that. It's just an example. And the reason why it's a popular example is because people like to build their portfolios with names purchased at closeouts or cheap auctions, or
That's
the
more or less me.
drops.
Yeah, plus
Yeah,
1%. The math,
exactly.
when we're talking domains, the math is very easy when we're talking 1%, right? So it's just a good example. But I mean, for me, I'll be the first to admit I'm probably a little bit under that. But again, it doesn't matter because I'm profitable, right? And that's what really matters at the end of the day. Is like for the math matters a little bit more when you're buying at that lower end, because at the higher end, if you're buying a domain for $50,000, well, that's your cost, right? Your renewals are basically a rounding error. So the long-term math, the sell-through rate year over year, it's less pertinent, right? And you also have more control over, you're buying a domain for $50,000. There is a certain point where that becomes pretty much liquid, right? Domains that close out, not so much, right? And so, when you're buying higher, it's a very different sort of math, very different theory behind it. And, it's not that it's better or worse, again, it's just, it is what it is, right? If you're buying domains at $50,000, well, you need to have that $50,000 that you're prepared to risk, right? It could still be a great domain, but sometimes some great domains take 10 years to sell, right? And if you're holding that and that's your only money you have for the business, it could be a good domain and you should never drop it or sell it for cheap. But at the same time, you just sometimes it's just luck. As I said, it's like any individual sell in this business is pretty much luck, unless you drop it to
So
a
what? Let me ask you
liquidity.
this. Let me ask you this, guys. Why do we talk about sell-through rates at all in this business? What's the reason for it?
I usually don't. I usually do it in pairs with what your sales volume, the multiples are. But it's more just to show that you need to be profitable, so you understand the math behind your portfolio. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter what the math is, but when you're buying stuff, you need to know what bucket that domain falls into, right? Is it a okay, I'm going to sell this. It's a probable sell at $3,000 at approximately 1% sell-through rate. When you're buying domains, you have to have that in mind, because that combination of numbers has to be profitable. But you won't always get it right. Right? Like, let's say I have a 1% sell-through rate in my portfolio. Well, chances are half of my portfolio is probably 2%, and the other half is probably 0, right? And then if I can work at that and eke out the trash from the better stuff, then my portfolio will perform better. But again, it's not the everything. What really matters at the end of the day is if you're profitable. But the problem is when new people come in the industry, they don't really understand what buckets the domain they're buying fall into, right? And that's why it's important to know these things. But at the end of the day, what really matters is, within the first couple of years, you need to be making a profit and paying those renewals of the domains you don't sell, because you're going to not sell most of your portfolio. And again, that's fine if your sales are covering all of that and more. But that's what it comes down to, really.
Josh,
So
let me answer your question
something.
quickly, because why? Okay, so a platform like Atom, I can understand why they would measure sell-through rate. You're asking why even bring it up, because I think, yeah, I throw it out. I don't really care too much about sell-through rate, but I can understand why a platform like Atom would think,
Yeah.
listen, we're pricing your names. We want to show that we know how to price your names. When we price them, we can sell them. So really, it's not only their marketing, but what sell-through rate is a marketplace that prices your names have, and they're not concerned about what you bought it for. You might have bought it for 2,000 and they priced it at 3,000. You might have bought it at $50 and they priced it at 3,000. So I think with a platform like that, sell-through rate, we want to know, as somebody that's participating in their platform, what is your sell-through rate? And then finally, Josh, you mentioned when it comes to um, all names that you're buying for, say, less than $50 or on closeouts or hand registration, then if you're spending $10 on a name and you're pricing at those, that what they call the sweet spot, which is the sweet spot only if you have purchased the name for less than $50. The sweet spot's 2,500. It sure isn't $2,500 sweet spot if you spent a grand on the name. So I think on the very low end, and if you're pricing in those those low ranges, maybe sell-through rate has some meaning, but outside of that, no, I don't, I don't consider it much myself.
Well, I think you explained it perfectly. I think those reasons are exactly why we talk about sell through rate, and I think that it's important to acknowledge that that's not applicable for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
the irony is that for Atom themselves, sell-through rate is meaningless because they don't have to pay for the renewals. So it's like their costs are basically their servers and their staff, and which is not nothing either. But I think
No,
this
but why
sell-through rate,
but it's important for
oh
them
yeah,
because it demonstrates
that they're
their
performing.
ability to
Yeah,
run a marketplace
exactly.
efficiently.
It's basically their advertising to us. Like, okay, we have a 2%.
Correct.
I don't know what their sell-through rate is, but say 2%. It's like, okay, yeah. So if I put my domains there, I have a fairly good chance of selling something, based on the volume of stuff they already have there. Because at a certain point for them, their sell-through rate really isn't what matters. It's the number of volume of sales that matters to them, but that's based on how much advertising they spend, right? And over time, if they build up their brand, they'll get some natural, people coming to their site, repeat business. But really, for them, the sales is really a matter of how
Is
much.
there an overall sell-through rate on the Atom portfolio? If you look at Atom's inventory as a portfolio, is there a sell-through rate, or is there just an individual sell-through rate for each seller?
I don't know. I'm not sure. That's a good question. I seem to
It would be
recall
quite
mentioning
cool
that.
to know what Atom's actual sell-through rate is
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the entire inventory, right?
yeah. Because
Wonder if
at the
I
end,
wonder if Darpin might share that if we asked him.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he would.
I think that's one of the things that he hasn't shared that people ask about because, right, it's available for each individual seller. What's your sell through rate? But the overall sell through rate. And the more I think about it, Josh, the more I'm thinking like a huge domains. Of course, it's important to those guys to know what's our sell through rate here. I mean, we got 5 million names. Are we pricing these things right? So then I think on an individual level, all of us are like, um, even Barman, who, complains more than anybody in the domain space, you wonder, am I pricing my names right? I mean, why am I selling anything here? What is my,
Barman's not full-time, so he's not allowed to complain about the domain space.
well, I'm curious that, a lot of folks in the crowd, tell us, come up here and tell us what you think about, I mean, how you monitor your own portfolio sell-through rate. Because when I just said I don't consider it, that's not true at all. Because I do look and think, now I'm priced real high. I got all my names priced. I was talking with Jason.com, and he's like, I don't want to price any of my things at fucking $5,000 or less. I'm going to price them real high. And then, when someone needs one of the names, they got to pay. And I almost feel that way too. Like I've had a lot of sales over the years that I think could have got 5 times that amount instead of 5,000. I could have got 25,000 because
But
I can't get you can't get a 5-figure, 6-figure sale, definitely not 7-figure if you don't price it that way.
yeah,
So that's how
and there's
I'm,
nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
If you're profitable longer term, there's nothing wrong with that. As I'm saying, like the math, it works out at different price points, right? You could sell your domains at $20,000 and sell a quarter what I would sell my domains at $5,000, right? At the end, which is better? Well, I mean, yeah, you could say
But
the
we don't know
20,000
that.
because you
You
get
always
the
say it
extra
could be
domains.
Hey,
a quarter.
That's the problem.
We don't,
That's the
yeah.
problem is you don't know ahead of time, right? You only know after the fact. That's where
I,
you're at. And so, sorry, go ahead, Josh.
I have a question for a member in the audience, if I'm allowed to ask it. Can Shane, did you just win Peach.xyz? I know you're listening, Shane.
Peach.xy. Yeah, enough.
Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, Domain Shane. Did you just win it? Feel like you might have done.
I was
Anyway, Peach.xyz just ended on GoDaddy auctions. No, not Peach.xyz, Kiwi.xyz. Kiwi.xyz. Did you win Kiwi.xyz, Domain Shane? It.
I saw
Oh,
it come
that
up.
4 letter
yeah that
CVC. Um,
that name is so good. I like it. I was bidding on it.
well,
I
what
bid
did it end at? $3,000?
$5,001.
How much?
I think it ended at 5,800. That one.
Yeah, I was making fun of some of the posts that were on Seiger's. He asked, what's your favorite name? And now I look back, it's like basically people had some great stuff there. I shouldn't have been making fun of it. He posted which one domain from your portfolio that you consider your favorite, and I see, I mean, geez, I see James Booth just posted Canopy, or not just posted. That was yesterday, I guess, or maybe in the middle of the night. Canopy, which
Canopy.com.
Yeah, he owns Canopy. Yeah, I
Yeah,
own
that's an insane name.
Canap. I own Canopy.com like a moron. Okay, so that shows you the difference. That's what, I stand next to James, but I'm probably still a little better looking even though I'm older. Okay, so but he's got the better name. But Canopy, but Spider.ai was one that Mr. Premium put up there, and also somebody put HQ.ai and Retail.ai. I was making fun saying there's a lot of
That
people
was that was
posting.
Luke. Who? Wait, Mr. Premium said that he's brokering Spider.ai.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
How much? I wonder how much he's asking for that.
And I'm wondering
Probably
if he
100K.
has any names personally, because I just noticed from Nathan at Above, he's their general manager of marketplace and aftermarket and all that stuff, and he doesn't even own any names. And a lot of brokers just simply focus on the names, And I did bring up.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you. Yeah, they that the names that they're representing, they treat as their own portfolio, basically.
Well, Drew's awesome. I talk about Rosner of owning a bunch of names. So it's nice when you sell one of those and it's not the big commission. He makes big commission anyway, but the point is getting
Yeah.
all the dough. And he mentioned that he sold some small ones. I'm glad he posted them, usavape.com and 123xyz.com for mid four figures. Yeah, so I'm curious. I like that he has, pricing names in the four figures, trying to move inventory, because when you have a lot of names, you don't just, price everything high. There was I saw that just posted on X. Somebody sold PAYPER.ai for 4,500. Arif, you said you were buying some AI names. Now you probably meant .com, related to .com, but do you own any
Yeah, no,
.ai?
.com. Hmm? I have nothing against AI. I
Do you
just
own
the
any?
acquisition cost is not my usual bread and my sort of model. But yeah, I have nothing against it. Like even all extensions, there's opportunities there, right? Right. There's no doubt that currently AI is probably the best there has been. Maybe with the exception of .NET in the 90s, or whatever it is. But I mean, it's if you get the right ones, but it's the left has to match up with the right of the dot, right? You have to have stuff that in context either the keyword has to be within the industry of the right of the dot, or it's got to be a great brandable like Kiwi, right? That's a good example. Kiwi's not like has nothing to do with crypto or whatever it is. XYZ is associated often with crypto, but whatever it is, but it's a good enough brand that they'll use it. Like they look a fruit like Apple, right? It's a good example of a brandable that's like nothing to do with tech, but it's a what is it, $1 trillion company, $2 trillion? I don't know what they're at right now. So these domains, if they're short enough and they're good enough, generics like fruit or an animal or a color or stuff in that category, we all know what they are, right? But once you start drifting off into those two words, it gets very difficult. And yes, there are some two-word AI sales, but those ones are really targeted, right? Those are really like within context. But that's what we're seeing now. That's how things are changing. That's what's the shift point we're at, is that we're actually seeing some two words sell, right? And not just one or two. It's like they're happening. So is it changing enough? Yeah, for .ai, but be careful, because like that's what we're talking about before with the addictions and stuff like that, is that people often take those examples and they map them onto other extensions that don't have the same strength, right? Like .now or whatever it is, right? .now I think is a good domain, a good extension, sorry, right? But there's only a small threshold of domains that I would consider are investable. And again, that's also, I don't even know if there's premium pricing there, right? That's one thing with XYZ. XYZ is good in a lot of cases, but you got to remember that now if you're getting stuff that are hand reg, there's premium pricing. So you got to realize that in these cases, the registries, the owners of the TLD itself, they're placing themselves in the positions of domainers. So for us, we got to buy low and sell high. But if already they're pricing them high-ish or medium high or whatever it is, then that delta for us to make a profit, it's much harder. So all these factors come into play. That I don't have too many alternate extensions, but it has nothing to do with me saying there's no opportunity there. There are. It's just you have to be really, really selective with what you buy, and that's where most people make the mistake. They fall on the rabbit hole.
How many people who are on, like, let's say on domain Twitter, how many people are there? Maybe like, I don't know, active I mean, there's probably tens of thousands of like lurkers, but active maybe like 1,000.
Yeah, 1 or 2 thousand. I'd say.
How
Not more than that.
how many of them do you think make 100,000 or more in the domain industry
Hardly any. And
per year?
nothing against
5% maybe.
hardly any, Josh.
1%?
Go ahead.
Less than 5, that's for sure.
Well, it's not that. I just think we hear, Arif spouting about some sales that he's made, and it's really impressive because in a few of the guys that have been posting sales, and then of course we see posts on X of sales, it's not this easy to cash in. There's hundreds of people in this poker room. Most people go, always are out of the tournament before you get in those cash positions, those top 8. And it's nothing wrong with it. It's just a fact. But many times when, an Arif, he mentions, some shit about Todd, the sky's not falling. I'm not saying the sky's falling. I know I've been in the domain space. It's like I keep coming to
You've
the poker
almost said
room.
it a
I
couple
know
times.
there's money to be made here,
why aren't more people grinding like through domain Twitter and building a network on domain Twitter, going into spaces, engaging in conversations, and then and doing something similar to what Mike is doing at the moment, and maybe like spending times in the forums on Name Pros? Why aren't more people doing that? And what I mean by what Mike is doing is like buying names on a smaller budget, flipping them for 2, 3, 4x, 5x, and then rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Obviously, Mike is a pro, and there are other people even in the competition that are not doing what Mike is doing, either because they're not capable or because they don't want to or they think there's a better strategy. But why don't more people do that? I don't understand.
Well,
That's
it's hard.
I've been like,
Mike knows it's lucky
I
too.
don't
Sorry
think
to
it, I
cut you
don't
off.
think it's but I don't think it's no, I think that's fair. I think it's fair that it's hard. It is hard. But there are lots of things that are hard, and investing and moonshotting is hard as well. Or maybe that's just lucky. I don't know. But there is certainly, like, the information is out there to do that kind of thing. And it's always baffled me. It continues to baffle me that more people don't do it or even try it. I don't know. I feel like someone like, if Mike wanted to do that, he could easily. I think he could scale up and do 100,000 just from flipping names in a year. And I don't understand why. I don't understand why more people don't.
You got him
I think a lot of
interested,
people
and you got him.
are scared to do that kind of outbound in one sense, and also a lot of people.
But it's not outbound.
You're right, but it does take time. But I think oftentimes it comes down to a lot of people who need to liquidate stuff or need to do that small scale stuff. The stuff that they have isn't really that good usually. Mike is probably one of the exceptions because he knows the industry. He's taught half the people in this room probably, right? So his ability to pick stuff that he could sell at that price point.
But I don't think he's spending. I don't think he's spending 7 or 8 hours a day on it right now because he's a pro and he only needs to spend maybe like an hour.
Yeah, one of the things is he's like not only a pro, he's like one of the pioneer pros. You know what I mean? He's like one of the rarest, highly evolved domainer and coder of any of us.
All right, well,
Let's
let's
be
calm
nicer
down.
to
Let's
him when
calm
he's
down.
dead.
He's
He's here
feeling
now.
too good about himself right now.
Hey, Mike.
No, seriously. But in any event, I think one of the reasons why is the market is not there. There's not enough people out there that see the value of it, and it's so hard to find. You can have a low price on a domain name. It's a great domain name, and it still won't get any
He's
sales.
going to tell us right now what's up.
Really?
Mike.
I don't see. Am I missing that? Because I go through domain Twitter a lot, and I don't see any good wholesale price deals ever. I don't see anyone trying to sell any names at wholesale.
No,
apart
none.
from, yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay, I got bumped and then came back up. Yeah, Bradley, I appreciate the love, but I don't think I'm like hustling any harder than other people. The point of this competition is to show newer investors who have a limited budget how to get started in domain investing. And there are 6 very successful domain investors that are competing, and everybody has their own strategy. And I just decided that I was going to try and do what Josh did when he started, when the Booth brothers did when they started, when Drew Rosner did when he started, and like look for good domain names that have multiple paths for sale, and just try and pick them up for as cheap as possible, and then flip them for like not a lot of money. Just rinse and repeat over and over again. And so all I'm doing is going to closeouts. Every day I've got 4 filters on expired domains that I look at. So I'm not like spending a ton of time. I probably spend 30 minutes a day going through those 4 filters. Each filter only looks at the last 24 hours. So you guys understand that expired domains only updates pretty much once a day. Maybe they pull some things out of it. But I just go through that list. There's less than 100 names on each of the lists because my keywords are very specific, and I'm only looking at the last 24 hours. So if I do it every single day, I'm only seeing the latest stuff that comes in. So basically I'm seeing all the closeouts that are $50 that were added today. And every single day I look at the list, all 4 of those filters, and I don't find anything. I probably find 1 or 2 domain names a week on average that I think are good, that are based on the keywords that Afternick and Cito and Adam are sharing, that I've taught in DN Academy over the years. And this is stuff that I never do. Most people that know my portfolio know that I don't buy these type of domain names. I don't want them in my portfolio because for me, it's just added overhead. I got to think about it. I got to manage them. I got to whatever. So I'm buying these domain names. I think they're good. Personally, I'm sure all other 5 guys on the competition think that their domains are better than everybody else's. I too think my domains are better than everybody else's. And I'm just looking for an investor who wants to pay a decent amount, a wholesale rate for a good domain name that I've done the work on, that I've looked at comps for, that I think have multiple opportunities, 2 different industries, or if it's in financial services, multiple different areas of financial services, like elevatefund.com that I recently picked up. And that's my strategy. One of these guys could get a retail sale from a domain that they purchased and easily take the number 1 spot. But as we all know, the odds of them selling 1 domain out of the 10 or 15 that they purchase, if they don't sell any, they're maxed out their funds, and then they're just going to sit there and not get any sales for the whole year. So that kind of stinks, to show new investors how to do this. So that's what I'm going for. That's my strategy. It appears to be working. As long as I can find 1 or 2 domain names a week that are flippable to another investor, and I just keep doing it consistently for the year that this competition is going on, I'm hoping that I'll be able to show people that you can turn $500 into, I don't know,
So
$10,000-$20,000.
my question for you is, like, to be
Wait,
fair to everybody,
1 second. I just want to make a. But you can ask the question. I just want to make a quick observation, because Mike says that he's finding 1 or 2 domains a week, but that's strictly from GoDaddy as well. So like, as a new domain
Yes.
investor, you have more. There are more options than that, right? There's also Dropcatch, there's also Namecheap, there's also Dynadot, there's Cito and various other places. So if he was able to look across the entire board, that might expand to 5 or 6.
Yeah, 100%.
So-
Thanks for clarifying that, Josh, because this is a GoDaddy competition. We're only allowed to buy on GoDaddy or Afternick. We're only allowed to sell through Afternick to have the closure of the entire process. And they're running the competition, so they're of course want us to use their services.
yeah, and that's one side of it, right? And my question was actually, coincidentally enough, the opposite side of it. My question to you, Mike, is how many of your sales that you've done do you think it's because you're Michael Seiger, right, as opposed to the random person down in the audience?
Well, that's the question that people have brought up on Twitter, and all I would say is go look at the names on the spreadsheet and tell me if you think the domains are selling because you think they're good domains, or you think they're selling because people just want to buy something from me. They want to spend $100 with me on a domain they don't think is worth $100.
I don't know, but no, they might think it's worth $100 because you're selling it, right? That's what I'm trying to say is like your reputation, and deservedly so. Like I'm not trying to, my love for you, I
Yeah. No, I get it.
But it's like if Michael Seiger is saying, "Oh, I'm selling this for $100," then I don't think anybody's going to hesitate at thinking it's worth $100.
Well,
right?
I don't know. I look at the domain names that are on other people's lists on that spreadsheet, the different tabs, and I would not buy many of those domain names.
Yeah, when
I don't know. I guess I'm not really clarifying your question, RF. Your question is valid. I don't know. I don't know if people just trust me more because they know I'm more analytical and I try and think through and make sure that, I'm not buying one words unless it's in an alternate TLD, but I'm not going to buy a .so and try and flip it or whatever. And every once in a while, I thought I saw goldfish.co hit closeouts last week. I'm like, oh my God, I'm spending $50 on this immediately. And I added it to the cart. I'm like, oh, it's goldfish.co. But I'm sticking to .com. It's only 2 words. It's under 14 characters. I'm trying to stay as close to 2 syllables as possible, up to 4 syllables, unless it's like, one that I think has, big opportunities, like Admission Boost was one of mine. So that's still 4 syllables. I was thinking college. The guy that bought it works in the healthcare space, which I didn't even think about for like hospitals and improving admissions processes and onboarding customers, things like that. I think it's a valid question, Arif. I don't know.
Well, let me say something, Arif. Hold on, let me say something to Mike about. He talked about his buying strategies, okay, and what he's doing with the 4 different whatever. It's the selling strategies that interest me, and that is he was selling a few names on NamePros. He also has this, smart move to have a person say, "Hey, I want right of first refusal." So these are things that the competitors that he's competing with can certainly incorporate or start using. But I think that's what maybe got you the lead, Mike, of going, okay, so NamePros is one of the few places where you can have an auction. And I'm not saying, I know you didn't auction, you probably just listed them there for a buy it now price, but using NamePros and connecting with somebody who said, hey, because there's a lot of guys out there, it's like, if you find something, bring it to me. And you're saying, well, I'm finding stuff, and if I bring it to you, of course, it's going to be wholesale. I'm in this competition. So tell us a little bit about using those 2 methods to sell quickly.
Yeah. So NamePros, so I didn't really know what my tactics were going to be on this, and I'm trying a lot of different things. So as you saw, I collected up 5 or 6 domain names, had them priced retail on Afternic, because you never know when somebody's just going to search on it, right? A lot of these names are changing who is, and it might trigger somebody, and they might want to like, oh, it's priced now, I'm going to go buy it. That would be fantastic. But I'm totally happy to like list it on NamePros and wholesale it. And a lot of the NamePros and Twitter. So I posted on NamePros with fixed price, respond first, you get it. And then I would generate an Afternic checkout link for them. And then I cross-promoted on Twitter. 2 of them sold on NamePros, 2 of them sold on Twitter. I sent out my Seiger Says newsletter. I think I might have summarized, that's my weekly, every Friday, I just like, here's what's going on in my life, either domain names or building or whatever. Usually it's business related. And somebody's like, oh, I'll take that other one that didn't sell. And then I was just left with freshparenting.com, which was the very first domain name I purchased, which I like, but, not a ton of use out there for people starting up consulting businesses with helping parents, coaching, instruction, things like that. Although I did it, and I will stand by it. It's something every parent should do. And so when the latest person posted on Twitter, like, hey, how about a right of first refusal for your next domain name? I thought, oh, here's a good opportunity. So I'm like, you get first right of refusal. here's the domain name, but if you want it, you have to pay me $150 instead of $100 for it, and I'm going to push Fresh Parenting to you for free. So basically, I sold the newest domain name I bought for $100, which is just my MO. I'm, buy it for closeout as cheap as possible, sell it for $100, rinse and repeat. But then I got rid of Fresh Parenting for half off. Nobody wanted it at full price, so I'm like, half off. And sold that one as a package deal. Funny story, yesterday, I saw a domain hit closeouts. It was at the $50. So, I add a lot of them. I don't add a lot of them. Every day I usually add 0 to 3 domain names to my watch list on expired domains, right? Paige Howe once talked about this long ago. He's like, I go through my list, I click, I add them all to the watch list, and then I go back to the watch list and I view them. And I like that strategy as well. And so I add 0 to 3 per day, and then I go back after I've done my 4 pages and my 4 filtered lists, and I look at those domains, and most of them I'm like, I just don't see it. It's just not good enough, whatever. One of the domain names was on the list. I won't mention it yet because I haven't gotten in my account yet. It went to $40. I had just happened to text one of my investor friends. Again, network's key. Let me tell you another story about Josh after this one. And I texted this investor. I'm like, hey, do you think that this is a good domain? I know you're in that space a lot. He's like, I freaking love it. You should buy it right now. I'm like, take it easy, tamp the brakes. It's still at $40. I got to wait for it to get down to $11 or $5. He's like, you should buy it right now. I'm like, I know you're not going to do me dirty and go buy it because I just told you it's on closeouts. But like, if I buy it for $40, which is going to cost me 50 and change, 52 with tax or whatever, will you buy it for $100 wholesale when it hits my account? He's like, done. I'm like, okay. So I got another sale as soon as that domain, lower profit, and now we've sort of switched the contest to be more about profit, which it should be. It should have been for them. Originally, they wanted to do total revenue, but it should be profit. So one more tactic that I tried. The other story I wanted to mention, one of the biggest sale that's on my list was elevatefund.com, which is a domain that I loved. I saw a lot of different segments within financial services that are using Elevate and or fund or funding or whatever. And so reached out to Josh, who is sharp as a tack with stuff like this, and he liked it. It was in auction. It wasn't in closeout. I actually saw it on the Premier. Do you guys get that Premier? If you have a Premier Services rep, you can sign up for the newsletter that you get daily, and they highlight some of the domains.
Not quite daily, but like every second day or something like that. Yeah,
I think I get it every day. Maybe not weekends, but every work day, I think I get it.
Okay.
Anyways, I saw Elevate Fund on there for like $30. I'm like, what is going on here? Is it in closeout? And clicked through, and it was in auction. So I watched it until the last day. Luckily, I was available, bid, was willing to go up to $500 on it. It sold at $403, I think, plus the $10 renewal, plus tax, put me at $430, something like that. And then Josh gave me great input. He's like, yeah, just try and flip it for $888 to mention a couple of investors, one of which likes financial domain names. I should have gone to him first. I went to the other one first, who declined it. But then as soon as I mentioned it to the one who likes financial domain names, he took it immediately. Like no haggling, no nothing. And so, having a network that you can bounce ideas off of is important, has helped me. Knowing what kinds of domain names people specialize in is important, has helped me. Having Josh as a text buddy is important, has helped me.
Yeah, because like I saw that name and I'm like, the grammar isn't right in that one. It's awkward, right? Like elevation funds, I would love, like or something like that. But Elevate Fund, to me, it was just it felt awkward. But
well,
hey,
it's not as good as Elevate
right?
Funding or Elevate Capital or
Exactly.
Name all of the different second words that could be associated with it. Is the worst of the options, 100%. But if you go into Google and you type quote elevate fund space fund end quote, you will see companies out there that are using it. And that was enough for me to pull the trigger on it. And that's why it only sold for $400.
Yeah, and that's probably, you know, people listening, that's probably the number one tool as a domain investor, right? You go in to Google, put whatever two words you have in quotes, and see is there action there, right? Are there people using that in a business sense or in a way that to make money? And that's usually the answer to the question, right? Like I didn't do that. So it's like I see the awkward grammar. I'm like, okay, well, that's why I say for me it felt a little bit like a Michael Seiger sale because like I'm pretty sure if I put that up, I wouldn't sell it. But you know, again, I've probably been proven wrong right here. So it's that's what we're all learning. You know, it's a good sale. You know, and especially in the context of the competition.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would buy a domain for almost $900 just because I recommended it. I could be wrong.
Mike, you're that special. I think.
I'm going to agree with you,
not
Mike.
only 900, you're priceless.
Hey,
$1 million.
Mike, this is your dough, though, right? I mean, basically, at the end of the thing, it does motivate you and each of the other people you're competing with. You get to keep the money. This is your money you started with, not GoDaddy's money, right? I mean, this is your money.
No, this is GoDaddy's money, but I get to keep it. So they started us all off with $500. That's all the money you have. So if you spend all of it, and you don't make any sales, then you've got $500 worth of liabilities and domain names that you're going to have to pay for the renewal on. But if you buy $500 worth of domains and then sell 500 plus commission worth of domains, you get to put that $500 in your pocket, minus the taxes you pay
even
or whatever.
Then. I mean, so they
start you
off
great.
with the money and you get to keep it. Well, Mike, I think it's great. It's like you're also thinking, geez, your son's building stuff. You know, you guys are doing stuff together. You're thinking, geez, if he just did this, of course, you know, if it starts getting too good, you realize it's worth your time. But of course, it's worth, you know, someone else's time to think, hey, you can make an extra couple grand a month, possibly. I mean, things are going in a great direction for you. I wanted to ask before we move on is okay, so before I ask you where people can sign up for your newsletter, because a lot of people still don't know where, I want to say if you do sign up for Mike's newsletter, and he's going to tell us where, you're going to get quotes that he's like a philosopher. I love the smell of domains in the morning. One domain can change your life. I said, yeah, just like meth. You know, it can change your life. And then since you mastered all 4 swim strokes, I mean, that means something too. But so Mike, where can people sign up for your newsletter? Where do they go?
Todd, you're too funny. It's just seigersays.com, or you click my profile and I think it's one of the links at the top.
Well, we were going to talk about, and it is funny that you mentioned one domain can change your life. And like I said, yeah, it's like one hit of meth. Yeah, it could.
Exactly. That's why I won't do it.
Well,
You know, I just think that what Mike just shared with all of us is, you know, real words of wisdom. The people on this, are listening here. It revealed how, and then when just that subtle thing with Arif and Mike interchanged about elevate fund. Arif has that sense that it just doesn't flow right, and Mike had the sense that yes, that's a name that won't get a whole lot of money, and so you have to have both of those in your psyche when you're out there trying to buy a name.
Yeah, and also here the important point is that, like, you know, your grammar really has to be on point. But again, sometimes the other elements of the domain, like in this case, in the financial sector, is one of the rare sectors where the price points are considerably higher, right? And so, yeah, it can overcome that a little bit to the degree where, yeah, you can still sell it in the range of your other domains, but the other ones have to be really perfect in terms of grammar. This one, a little bit more forgiving because it's in the financial sector and there's demand there and also value, right? The business, the profits in these types of businesses that end with funding and investments and all that stuff, they make serious profits compared to some of the other ones, like you're selling, whatever 2-word, like, I was going to say dog food, but
plus they're 2 great key individual words, alone.
Yeah, but you got to be careful because oftentimes when 2 good keywords get together, it doesn't mean there's value, right?
Right. No, that's what I think wanted to share, that just even that makes it a
and,
nuance that you need to be
and that's
aware of.
where that's for me as a domainer. That's where my strength is, because I go deep into the list when I'm buying stuff. I go deep. I try to find stuff that people don't see. And there's two words that might on their own might not be too valuable, but you put them together and the synergy means, okay, this is going to be really great for somebody's business. But then you got to be careful for those ones too, because it can't be so far out there that people won't think of it, right? That's the other thing too, is that somebody needs to think of that combination of words. And so if the answer is yes to that, and the answer is okay, it's a profitable industry with a lot of demand, then yes, those words can be a little bit more forgiving or whatever. But if it's an industry that it's only one person coming in, you think it's gonna be an Amazon seller who's going to probably sell like $10,000 worth of their product a year, they're not going to spend $5,000 for that domain, no matter how good the words are. Even if you have a perfect grammar, perfect spelling, good, alliteration, it's very memorable. It's just because of the type of business, they won't get to that price point. And again, depending on your portfolio, you need to sell your average domains at a certain price point in order to maintain profitability. For me, if I sell my domains at $1,000 right now, given my current sort of sell-through rate, I'm breaking even. Right? Maybe I'm probably even losing with the commissions and consider time and all that stuff. So all these things, they matter. They get together and they matter. But finance industry, it's a good business.
Exactly. And if you just to connect the points from A to Z, right? I sold it to another investor who understands financial markets, better than most. If you type it into your browser, you can see that he has it priced at 34,888. So basically, bought it for 888, priced it at 34,888. I think that's 2.5%, of the sale price, if he were to get the sale price that he purchased it at. And so, he's buying smart. I think he priced it well. To your point, RF, like there is a lot of money in.
Sound like Mike's walking around. We lost him.
You there, Mike? Yeah, we lost you.
But let's welcome Bank of Bitcoin to the stage. See what
How you
comment.
doing, mate?
Hey, what's going on?
Thank you for having me on. I've been waiting for a domain space because I've got some domains and I'd love to hear people's thoughts and opinions.
Well, thanks for joining us. It sounds like you down under, or are you over in Europe? Where are you coming from?
I'm in Europe at the moment. I'm British. But I love the .com bubble, and I brought algorithmicpricing.com and algorithmicpricingsolutions.com. And I wonder how long should I keep these? Because there's not been much interest, but it is a combination of words that is pretty bullish.
Well, we'll give you the famous story of this domain investor that we know. He sold cognitive. What was the second word? I can't remember. Some long word, but it meant something in some industry. So, algorithmic. Did you say pricing? What did you say?
Yeah, algorithmic pricing and algorithmic pricing solutions.
Okay, so they're very long. They're not great names that a company's going to name themselves after, but there may be some search associated with it. And I don't know, no research at all. Does anybody pay to advertise? Basically, to pay to get traffic when people search those words. But tell us quickly, did you hand register these? When did you hand register them, or did you buy them on the aftermarket? How long have you owned them?
Just GoDaddy, and I've had them for about a year now.
Yeah, well, a couple things. So I'm assuming algorithmic pricing has been a term for quite some time. So why were the names available? Maybe they were taken for a while and then they were dropped and you had a chance to register them, or maybe just no one ever wanted them in the first place. I'm going to say off the top, I'm thinking, the only good thing I can think of is, well, yeah, you thought of it. So there's somebody that's like you. Remember, Aristotle said the most personal things are the most universal. So you're probably not the only person who knows of this term or thinks of this term, but a lot of the folks that know of this term aren't domainers or domain investors, or think, geez, let's check the term. There's the domain investor community. Now there's, thousands of us, but as soon as we see something on TV, we think, go check and see if that domain's available. So as algorithmic pricing becomes more popular, someone may end up like you. Let me search and see if that's available. If and that they're going to see now that it's registered, and maybe if you got it priced at $1,900, so you're just trying to make, from 10, 15, 20 bucks and sell it for 2,000, maybe there's something there. If you're thinking this is a great term, I'm going to ask 50,000 or 100,000, right? Somebody may hit on it and think I'm not, that interested. I got to say, not knowing the the popularity of that term, I would say just flat out from a domain investor, no. Long algorithmic pricing, and then the other one, pricing solutions, that would have to be, really just way too long. So I'd say no. I probably wouldn't even if I saw there was some search traffic on Google, I probably still wouldn't pick up the names, because I'll mention this and then shut up, and that is,
Well, then you got to think of who would want the name.
yeah, well, what I was going to mention, Brad, is there's some terms that you're going to find on Google that are highly searched terms that still doesn't make it a valuable domain name, and it may be a term that's searched 1,000 times a day, even 50,000 times a month. But it depends on what that term is, because there's many 4-word search terms that people are searching, whether it's how to get rid of bed bugs or something. You don't you know Sometimes it can be a domain that's worth investing in, especially if it's a hand reg. But I don't know. So my take is a no on those names, even though they mean something. Any comments do you have, Arif?
Yeah, but first of all, I actually own howtokillbedbugs.com. but that's, how random is that? But no, this is exactly the type of domain that, as a random person going through the list, I don't know, right? You have to do the research. So the second one, I would say it's a little bit too long, especially considering you have the first one, because if you add a third word to it, your drop off in terms of how much you can sell it for and the probability of sale is pretty steep. Not to zero, but it's pretty steep. And again, I'm going with my gut here, and this is the thing, is that your gut could be wrong. You really want to check the stuff when you're going through lists, and before buying the domain, you want to do a little bit of research on Google, because I'm often wrong, right? It's like Google will tell you, is there people using this term? My thought is that I think algorithmic pricing is actually a thing, right? Except that, and even if people are using, quote unquote, the marketing term AI, right? So AI pricing, that's what's being replaced with. Even if it's not really AI, right? It really is algorithmic. A lot of people are overusing the term AI for exactly that, like fancy algorithms that they've put in the back end. But now the marketing buzzword is AI. That's why I think a lot of people say, oh, AI, the term is going to drop off. I think it's the opposite. I think so many things will be AI, but I also think so many things are not really AI, but they want to pretend as AI to the layperson who doesn't really know the difference between a very complex algorithm and an actual AI, that it's going to pass, right? Like, marketing, it doesn't matter what's true or not, it's what the illusion is. And that's why I think the term AI is going to be very, very, strong going forward, because there's a lot of stuff that are AI adjacent that are going to be tried to be labeled AI, just so that, it can be part of the hype and people will, quote unquote, value it more, even if, again, there's nothing new, it's just a fancy algorithm or a little bit more complex. But so you're fighting that battle with that domain. But again, it doesn't mean it's zero, right? People in the industry will probably recognize that term, and they don't care about the marketing term, right? They just go, okay, yeah, no, this is the actual term, just because it's not AI. No, we want algorithmic pricing, right? But again, I don't know that because I didn't do the research. So, but these are all things that come to my head. I would look at it more, but it's off the top of my head. Is it a good domain or not? The first one, it's not bad in my mind, but again, I would want to really confirm that with a good deep dive in Google and whatnot.
I think this is a perfect example of what we were just talking about with Mike and you, Arif, is that those are really good single names that are trendy and selling well, but just putting them together doesn't make it, an asset that a lot of people would want. So you have to be careful. Just by stringing keywords together doesn't necessarily make a great domain.
Well, automatic pricing, auto pricing definitely means something. And the good news about algorithmic pricing, listen, there's folks in this room who would say, I don't like that name at all, it sucks, but they'll buy something similar to this and act like it fucking means something. I'm telling you, it means in this industry, and they'll fucking go to bat for a name exactly like that. So the truth of the matter is, the good aspect of it is you can contact companies that maybe offer algorithmic pricing services, basically do pricing for industries or for whatever, and you contact them. This is if you did do outbound. Well, it's a term that is descriptive, so you don't have to worry about, oh no, they think they have a trademark to it. So you can contact companies that do algorithmic pricing. I just love saying it now. And you can say, listen, of course you're aware of it. I see it all over your website. I'm offering this name. I think it, and then and I'm sure you've seen, that's probably why you got the solutions, that there's companies that say we provide algorithmic pricing solutions. So the good news is you reach out to companies. You can always say, I'm reaching out to several companies that could benefit from this. I'm reaching out to you because I know this is one of your specialties. So that, it's not completely, I would say for nothing that you've registered these names. You have something that you can possibly do with them. To wait around like most of us do until someone buys it from you, well, you may get it sold if you price it, I'd say definitely in the four figures, not more than that. Get it sold before a lot of us sell some of our names. So it is domaining hit and miss. Well, so thanks for joining us, Bank of Bitcoin. How long have you been buying? What made you start buying domain names as an investment? Did you first buy them to build on like most of us? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Originally, it was from the enthusiasm of my friends. I understand that shorter the better. I got a friend called Shane, and he brought www.schoolteacher.ai, and he sold it for 1,800. And since then, I realized that the future of futurism is to those who build it, and just understanding history, present, and future at the same time, and what I see has potential. And I think one of my first, I was pretty naive. And one of my first buy-ins was algorithmic pricing solutions and algorithmicpricing.com. And I've just expanded my portfolio. Like, I love ETFs. I brought www.pyrite ETF, and just Bank of Bitcoin.ai too. That's why I call myself Bank of Bitcoin. I collect Bitcoin, and I brought the domain. And just anything that I feel has value for the future of futurism, and just buy and hold and see what the future holds.
I'm glad you mentioned short. That's something that takes some time for people to understand too. It only makes sense in naming. Short is better. And I remember the phrase, find a Bitcoin, pick it up all the day, you'll have good luck. Okay, so I'm glad to hear you're, investing in Bitcoin. For your friend Shane, sounds pretty slick too. Schoolteacher.ai for 1,900 sounds low. Of course, teacher.ai I'm sure would go for, a lot. We were talking earlier about people coming into the space, and there's more and more folks that are realizing, yes, domain names. There's it's really your sign, your entry, your door to your online presence, and now it's you're going to be able to use them right for payments, for identity, really for everything. But it's interesting, to see. I was going to mention, need to come back here on Thursdays. We're going to be here for another 30 minutes. But my co-host, who really runs the show, knowledge-wise, I run the outline. Josh, he sounds like you. He's from the UK, but he lives in Florida now. He made a big mistake moving. Anyway, so he's back in the UK right now, enjoying time with family, and he is, as Mike pointed out, pretty slick, and we all agree that's why we come in here and we listen to him. He's a domain investor that experiments with, new extensions, trends, but been very successful. Also is willing to, spend, let's say, the big money, 5-6 figures on a name, be patient and hold, really is good at pricing. But I bring it up, it's like, hey, you two UK guys would probably really get along. But anyway, you can learn a lot from him, and then you can also understand him because he says some things, and we're like, we don't know what that means. That must be something they eat over in the UK. Just kidding. He's
I've just followed all the speakers, so for
yeah,
sure,
he
very
he
bullish.
Josh is yet Josh.co. You'll see JOSHDOTCO is his username or his Twitter handle, whatever you call it. But pretty slick, and you'll see his posts. I mean, he's always adding a bunch of crap. Okay,
The word banger.
yeah, banger. That is something that you guys eat over there, isn't it? Or that's in Germany. Oh, who gives a shit? Okay, so we're going to be talking about Namebright. I just say that because Namebright has a $6.29.com registrations going on now. All you have to do is, I guess, put some money in your Namebright account. It's like, I guess, buying, I don't know, a gift card at Namebright, but basically that's pretty cheap. Get, and it's unlimited, $6.29.com registrations. A lot of us who have been in the space a long time know we might be a member of the GoDaddy discount domain club where we get, I think it's 10, what I don't know what I spend if on a registration, 10.29. We basically spend $10 plus the 18 cents or whatever the ICANN fee is. In that, we think everybody spends that type. We forget that no, a lot of folks will spend $15, $20. They're not getting these discounts. And you can imagine $20 is a lot different than $7, especially if you're a new domain investor and you're like, I do want to buy 10 of these things. Well, 10 at 6.29, you can spend $63 or $200. If you're, so we want to say namebright.com is a place where you can get low registrations. I really like Dynadot.com for pretty much, if they offer pretty much every extension. I can't say all of them, but they offer every extension at near wholesale pricing. So when we were mentioning, I heard guys talking about the .now, and yeah, I'm only paying $60 for a renewal. Well, you can get it for $33, $35 at Dynadot. It's pretty big when you're investing in these other extensions, and each registrar, buys it from the registry at wholesale price and then decides what they want to add to it. So definitely for the new GTLDs, you want to get a good registration price and a good renewal price, and believe it, it's different, all around at different registries. So now what Todd Hahn at Dynadot, he's their CEO. Guy just worked 25 years, busting his ass. Got 40 engineers over there. It's a great company. He decided earlier this year that I'm going to offer every extension, every registration at wholesale. I'm not going to have some that are much more expensive than others. So if you really, pretty much beats almost every place. Porkbun.com is fucking good too. Ray King, who operates these places. Of course, people know GoDaddy and Namecheap. They're the two biggest. But I just have to bring up, Namebright right now, selling for $6.29. Go ahead, Brad.
Todd, didn't you say that Dynadot has a code, LuckyCom25, for that $6 domain special? Is that?
Yeah, and I think, didn't I spend, thanks, Brad. I think I spent, it was like $6.99 the other day
And
using
is that
that
for
code.
just one or as many as you
I
buy?
think many as you buy, all in July. So they got a,
And also, the Dynadot's .ai is $74. And so it's like $148 for the 2-year thing, which is a lot less than others.
and definitely, even when you're spending 170, sometimes you can find it for, just that $30 more or whatever. You want to get, I like, have a solid registrar that's been around, in my opinion, for a while, and then get good pricing. So now they're become real competitive. But anyway, I love it's knowing the guys that run some of these companies make it easy for me to want to do business with them because I like them and I like how they lead. So that's Dynadot, Namebright, and so on. But yeah, thanks, Brad. There was, you know, after Nick, of course, everybody knows is GoDaddy's marketplace partner. Before we move on, I wanted to ask you guys on stage and then anybody in the audience, if is there any place other than, I know Name Pros allows you to, that's just that forum, allows you to start an auction with your domain name. You're a personal, you're a private person. You want to auction your domain name. You can start an auction, and there's some rules. But listen, there's always been buyers over there. You can start an auction on NamePros. You can no longer do it on GoDaddy auctions. You can't be a private seller. I know at our friend Jeremiah's company, catches.io, where he is a catch service, drop service, whatever you want to call it. He was selling some, I say, house names, some their personal portfolio. He was offering an auction. It was a reverse auction. I really liked it. And I think in the future, he's going to allow some private parties to auction their names. But my question is, are there any are there any places, is Namecheap doing it? Is Dynadot doing it? Are there any places where you can auction, not sell, but auction off your domain names with or without a reserve?
I think the name Liquidate might still be around, but that's reverse auction, right? So that's not quite the same thing. Didn't one of the, I know it was Dropcatch or one of those companies, one of JT managed, didn't they have at one point they allowed certain sellers to have their own auctions as well, but I think that's ended since.
Namejet.
I
So
don't know.
Namejet no longer
Namejet, yeah.
allows you to sell, auction your names. I did for years. That's a great opportunity to slide them in there. People love going to Namejet. I mean, there's a lot of buyers there that are looking for drop names. They get bid up. I used to sell names privately there, and they would let me put up a banner, ABC Productions or American Business Guy. I had my own little area where I could send people to my names, but then they would also, be listed with all the others. But anyway, so all these places are eliminating the ability for private sellers to sell. And I'm just curious if they're, what's out there. Cause I know Dynadot and Spaceship are doing stuff,
yeah.
but I don't know the ins and outs of
And
it.
we used to do our own at, whenever we had them on Clubhouse, right? And even before that, when I was hosting the domain social on Zoom, we used to do them there too. Back, when the pandemic was still there, and there was still a critical mass of people that made it worth the time. You need enough people in the audience, right? So if it's in a live setting, you need, I don't know, I would say at least 30, 40 people minimum, right? Because a lot of those are not going to be buyers. But then if you're going online, you need even more than that. It's always a chicken and egg thing, right? You see all kinds of people trying to do this over the years, and they all come up and say, "Oh, I made the best platform. It's got these features and blah blah blah." In the end, it has to work, right? I'm not going to say it doesn't have to work. Platform has to be solid at least, but the real challenge is getting a pool of buyers and a pool of sellers who are willing to sell at realistic prices, right? And that's the problem that we usually have, is that combination. To get them together, given the number of people of domain investors in the industry, it's not impossible, but it's a challenge, right? And there's a reason why it's cyclical. It starts up and it stops because you really need people to stay on it and be consistent. And the buyers come week after week, and the sellers, still have a quality inventory week after week, and not just get the best ones at the start and then you're left with nothing 2 months later. So it's a challenge, right? I think Jeremiah, I think he's got existing sort of a client base with all his products put together. So I think there's a reason to be hopeful there. But overall, I don't know. I think oftentimes also it's the bigger marketplaces where it could succeed. Well, like, why would GoDaddy want us to sell stuff there? Because all the stuff that's expiring, they're making 100% in the profit. If we put our stuff there, they're making whatever the percentage of the week is, right? 15, 20, 25%, which is a great percentage, but not when you compare it to the other stuff. So if them in their mind, they're thinking, well, the people coming to our auction platform, they have an X amount of budget and they're going to spend it. And if it's 100% on the stuff that we make 100% profit on, then it's better, right? But maybe if we have we sell our stuff there, well, maybe we'll also buy stuff, right? That's the first thing. But then also it's just like, it might dilute from what they're actually selling. So, are we going to see something? I hope so. But is it realistic hope? I'm not so sure.
Namebright was working on something where they were allowing, if you have your names there, you want to let them expire, you can let them expire. They'll go through the drop catch. Drop catch is part of Namebright, and they would share the profits. I think maybe even split the profit. They were working on
Yeah.
that. I'm going to find out really what's going on there, because
That's what.
the whole key is, and Eric, you know this, is sometimes we have names and we're like, listen, don't really want to let them drop, but we don't really want to renew them. Maybe we're buying tons of stuff, with people with thousands of names, and you're like, I'd like to recover anything from this. And I believe if I could auction them off at no reserve, maybe I could get $5, $20, $80. We see. So, it's not like you're, oh shit, I
Yeah.
want to sell my trash. A lot of it's not
Yeah, anything
trash. Go ahead.
anything is better than just letting it go.
In an ideal world, like I think probably the best venue, and that's not because of technical limitations, but we could do something here on X, right? And just have auction our stuff and get a group of people. But the problem we have is we can only have like 10 speakers on and 3 hosts on stage. So you're
Well,
limiting.
you don't need them.
potential
You don't need
buyers.
them to yell. I'm going to ask Josh about something only because it's fun later this year to say, okay, we have some names. If you're interested, post in the chat or one. There's ways to get bids. You don't need people screaming out. It's more of, are people, if you're selling somebody else's name, auctioning somebody else's name, what I would want is I'd want it in my account. So then when it sells, I can push and not ask somebody, oh no, they didn't follow through, because I wouldn't be part of an auction that they didn't follow through, because that'd be the biggest bullshit. But then with about the buyer paying, that's always a risk, because if you're letting, just a room and then somebody comes in and says, shit, I've never participated before. I don't like the whole, sign up when we're qualifying people. I like somebody come in and say, shit, I'm in that sector of business. I can't believe you're auctioning this name. I want it. I want to bid. We want to let them bid. But then, you run the risk of fakers, people bidding and then, backing out of it. But I do like, we're not talking about, there can be some big sales, but it's more of just, is there a place to liquidate names? But, people look at in the domain space, there's a lot of negativity around liquidating names, because then it's like, now you're
Well, it
basically,
depends on where you're doing it, right? Like if you're doing it to end users, the argument can be made that, yeah, you are putting a downward pressure on the value of domains. If it's just within our, domain investor community, then yeah, I think,
I don't know. I wouldn't want it
totally
just in
fine.
the domain investor community. I
I
want it
know.
just everyone. So if you're in retail, or say if you're a retail buyer and you like happen upon a room and you're like, shit, that's a great name, or it's perfect for what I want to do, and I can get it for a wholesale price. That's beautiful. I mean, that's what we all do all day long about, just as consumers. We know
Yeah.
I don't want to pay retail. Sometimes I want to pay wholesale. Most of the time I have to pay retail because I don't qualify to buy wholesale. So, but I don't think it ruins anything. And I don't think, I think what,
So I think the problem is the cost of marketing to get those buyers in on for such one-off events. If you're gonna like do, let's say, like January you'll do like AI sales, and February you'll do cannabis, and then whatever March you'll do financial, whatever it is. I just I think the marketing cost to get an actual market that actually gets you even a minimum liquid amount is just the time and effort and challenges and marketing costs. I think it's going to be very, very challenging. Is it impossible? No,
well,
but
times
you're going to
change.
take a lot of energy.
Times change. What I would do is the marketing is doing a room every week for fucking years, and then finally telling people, and I mean like in this room, but tell them on domain name law that gets a different audience. But what you would do is say, hey, next week we're going to have, or in 2 weeks out, we're going to have an auction, and all the names are .coms that were over 15 years old registered, and maybe to make it worthwhile, because you got to have some goods, and they're all going to be no reserve to start. So come
Yeah.
on in, and then
So
basically what you're going to do is say, okay, well, who would want to do that? Well, I've dropped names that I've had 15 years. So you're going to see, yeah, what's your comment?
I'm going to say, like when I was doing the domain social back on Zoom back in like 2000, 2001, we did exactly that. We'd have sometimes we have different themes at different weeks. We'd have our regular talk portion like we do here, right? Then after at a certain time, I forget what time I set, but like there'd be a certain time where, okay, we're starting the auctions now. Now it was more of a social auction. Like we would talk during the auctions, we'd say, oh, this name could be used for this and could be for that. But it was fun. It was fun and educational. And some of them went up in prices, right? But then again, as the number of people in the room started to go down after the end of the pandemic and people were going back to work and whatnot, it became less viable. It became oftentimes, okay, there'd be one or two bids and that'd be about it. And whereas, just 6 months before, a domain would sell for like $400. At that point, we're selling for like under 100, maybe not even get a bid, right? So you need to get that critical mass of people. That's the most important thing. So, I don't know, at some point, maybe on these Thursdays, we could figure something out.
There's going to be
once
no
we get around
critical,
people.
I say critical mass, but as we saw with Bank of Bitcoin, and we know with a lot of people out there, new investors, we've seen over the last, at least I have personally, over the last 5 years, more people know about domain investing and want to get involved in it. All right, well, I think they would get involved for $100. Okay, do you guys anybody want to buy this for 150? We got a bid for 100. Not this, I'll do 101. I mean,
It's
basically the headache is
so much easier
who's
said than done.
operating it, because no one wants to
Yeah.
do it. But I think, with regards to you just have to see, are there more domain investors now than there were 5 years ago on X? I mean, it seems to me like there are, but you're right. Marketing, basically getting heads in the crowd and then people willing to spend some dough. But
I've
we're not talking
I've
about
done it before, and I like every now and then I think, oh, maybe I'll do it again and whatnot. And it's just it's a very big hill to overcome. And the thing is, you have to know you're gonna get it right that first time, because if you don't, the reputation is lost. But you never know, right? It's so hard to know the first time. So it's a circle. It's like you need to be able to guarantee your sellers that you're gonna have some buyers there, and then you have to guarantee the buyers that there's gonna be domains there at decent, fair prices. Because that's the other challenge too we have in this industry, right? Probably the biggest challenge of all is getting the people who are sellers to actually have price points that are sellable. Most domain investors, especially the newer ones, to have unrealistic expectations of pricing,
Sure.
right? And
But
it's
Gareth,
just,
this has got to be liquidation. It's got to be like me. I have a bunch of names in my portfolio. I'm going to drop
yeah,
them. So it's no sweat. If no one buys them, no big deal. But they
yeah,
still need to be good, aged names that
I
you
know.
think are going to attract. So it just can't be crap. But then it's got to be a seller that's like, listen, I'm basically willing to give away. No reserve. You got to hit on all cylinders. It's got to be
Yeah,
a good name
Right.
that you're willing to sell at no reserve. Well, why would people be willing to do it? Because we have thousands and thousands of names, and you want to
so
keep just
yeah,
I want to keep just my top 500 great ones. So I would let some others go for 100, 200. Well, why would I do that? Well, I only got 50 in them. I hand registered it 6 years ago. I got 60 in it. So, I guess the point is you would definitely have to have not a bunch of sellers who are like, well, I'd like to do this and I want to offer that.
yeah.
No, fuck, it's got to
So
be no
what I'm
reserve.
I'm
It's
gonna
got to be, go
again,
ahead.
I'm gonna tell you from experience. Like I would love that to happen, but you also need somebody to triage, because in those situations you're gonna get jammed with so much zero value domains, right? The people who really want to liquidate, who think there's value when there's really no value.
Well, no, I'm
So
not going to get
that's
jammed. I would tell them, go kiss off. You're not part of this thing. I mean, I'm just saying, I would accept.
yeah,
No, it's got to be as good as, and not all my stuff would sell. I know a lot of stuff I drop that's over 15 years old that I see it on GoDaddy, and a lot of us do. You drop names and you see that they sell. It doesn't mean they would sell on X by any means in a room that has 50 people when they got 50,000 eyes. So I understand that, except no one's going to be loading up with crappy names with a reserve. I'm going to say no. Once your good stuff at no reserve. Why would they do it? Because people go broke. And people in this domain space, they spend a lot of money, and then I'll tell you, smart ones are going to start going, I need to get something back out of it rather than just letting my names drop. We didn't
yeah.
get to it. We'll get to it, I guess, right now, is
Well,
that domain
we could try
addiction.
something.
I'm
Go
one
ahead.
of those people.
Yeah.
I want something out of it, as opposed to just letting it drop. And now I'm seeing that we're in a transition with AI and autofill and finishing off words without you even typing the whole name in, that I'm changing what I'm buying completely, and I'm letting go what I bought 10, 15 years ago. But one of the things is, look how hard Monty works at his domain auctions. You know, I mean, there's so many variables. It is a tough, arena to get involved in. But what I wanted to ask is about the the expiration date of a domain name. How many days prior to its expiration can you put it on the market? You know what I mean? Like, I know if it's on Afternic, it's got to be 45 days or 30 days, and then it comes off if it's not going to be renewed within 30 days, they don't show it.
I think that's just for fast transfer. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, it depends anyway. Like look, I'm trimming my portfolio.
I have one more question
Yeah.
about if I just bought a couple names, and I want to put them up on Afternic or wherever. Do I have to hold them for 60 days before they're sellable, or how does that work?
I think you can list them, but they're not fast. Don't qualify for fast transfer. But don't hold me on that. And I think that's how it is. There's a lot of different things there. That's the thing. But as you're talking about Afternic, but I mean, if we're doing our own live sort of auction thing, there's no real rules, right? I mean, I would say like expired less than 30 days is probably the only hard and fast rule, as long as you're transparent. Like for me, I have some domains I might let drop. Like, okay, they're already expired. That's fine, right? So the condition is that, yeah, it comes only with the auth code, right? So you have to pay for the transfer, but then you get a full year. And then the price after that is, but as long as it's clear, right? It can be whatever you want it to be, but it should be transparent. Like you can't just sell a domain that's just recently expired and not give the warning that the person has to pay for the transfer or the renewal, right? That as long as it's clear, it's fine. Like I think a lot of people want to sell stuff near expiration date. And if we're having like a room where we're, like we used to have on Clubhouse, that's totally fine. I think, as long as it's clear, right? Whatever it is. Like whenever I was doing a couple little test things. I was doing some little batches of stuff. I always put the expiration date of all the domains, right? That's because I want it to be transparent. So that it has to be clear. But otherwise, I don't think there's any hard and fast rule. I think after day 30, or as you're getting close to day 30, you're in that danger zone where you might not be able to actually transfer it out. Some of us have realized recently with Spaceship, they've changed their terms, they've changed different rules, whatever it is. They say it's 30. I've had stuff they took out of my portfolio less than 30 days after expiration. But now I think they're going to be streamlining it to make sure it's 30. There was a little bit of negative feedback, and I think they're going to keep it at 30 days. Where they have the right to take out the domains, and they have taken some of my domains. But you know what? Like, I didn't want to renew those ones, so okay, go ahead, but let me know, because I might want to liquidate them, as you said. And there's no hard date. I think what you can do, especially if you're going to like name pros like Mike does, it's just be transparent. If the domain's expired, say it's expired and say what the renewal date is, and do what you need to do.
Yeah, it's been done many times. People do these little auctions. What I would recommend, Brad, is the name needs at least 60 days. Don't try to auction something that. So me personally, when I offer something for wholesaler, like, hey, I'm getting rid of these names, I'm not going to renew them. So if you want to pick them up for $25 or $50, and I always get a few takers if I list 100 of them, I usually make sure that there's 60 days left. That's just me to say, listen, they're not expiring this week. We don't need to hurry up. Your payment's late. I'm not worried about it. So have a little bit of time. Just be organized. But what I think would be interesting would be to have here's anybody that's interested in participating in the auction. Basically, we're having an auction next week. If we say that we're having an auction next week, here's a preview of all the no reserve names, because there's all going to be no reserve. So don't expect, a singleword.com, because no one's going to come and do that. But here's all the no reserve names. If you want us to, want us to include it, we're not making you, confirm, or you're going to bid on it. You know what I mean? But if you see any name on this list that you certainly want to include, go ahead and, send a message. But go ahead and give a prelim to here's a lot of the names that are going to be on this. And then if when it comes time to auction them up, anybody want this name for $10? Okay, anybody want this? Anybody? There's one bid. Anybody want this for 20? If no one wants it, go on to the next one. Go on to the next one.
Well, that's I think that would be a really good marketplace. But when you say no reserve, does that mean I'll buy it for $1?
Well, when I say no reserve, it depends on what I want to start at. So no, we wouldn't fuck around with $1, excuse my language, because that's just a waste of everybody's time. Probably be $20 just so the person can get their, so we can say if we think it's worth $20, because I know people, or maybe 10, but the point is certainly not $1. It would be the cost of a registration anyway.
So
but
you would say
we
it's
would
a no reserve and it's a $10 minimum
I
kind of
think
thing.
on the socials, what was Brad? You were there. What was it? Would you have? Was it 5 or 10? I forget what it was. But it's actually different weeks. We had different themes, and it was different amounts, right? Like if the theme was a more valuable theme, the starting point would be a little higher. But I think the lowest we did was $5 or $10.
But
I
the
forget.
point is, if it's more valuable, then people should bid it up to that amount. So you should never
Yeah,
have to start them. But that's why, even with, I offered this premium 4letter.com. Yeah, it's still going to start at $20. We know it may end up at 180 or 280, 200, and it's more of the increments. What would people want? But, it just needs somebody, to direct traffic and say, here's how fast we're going to go through these. What really is a good, someone could develop out very easy is all domainers that plan on dropping names. Well, if they were all in one location and people could go through them and know, all right, you can pick up these names for $20. These are names that, if you could have restrictions. All these names have to be registered for at least 2 years or at least 5 years. The point is, there's a lot of folks that are dropping names, and we know sometimes this can be a good name. You might be able to make money off this name. I don't care. I don't want it anymore. I don't care if it's that great of a name. And now I've pretty much cleaned out my stuff because I've had, like I said, great 5-letter names that end in TV. I was successful. I made money. But when you have hundreds of them, I don't want to, I pick through, I might keep a few of them, just a few because I plan on using them. But the point is, there's great stuff that's been dropped that, that a lot of us domain investors drop all the time.
Absolutely.
And people think if it's
What
so
you
good, why
just
would
said,
you drop it? Because don't want it anymore. Don't care.
Todd, you just gave the criteria of a really good platform. That was
So,
an excellent idea. What you would
Todd,
say.
go to headlinedomains.com. Right, that's my page. I was using it to liquidate some stuff. Some are probably past the point where they can be transferred. Some have expired. A couple of them I sold. I didn't really take it too seriously because there's stuff I'm mostly going to drop. I did renew a couple of them, so just be careful. But again, I'm not even I'm not interested for sale, but just the page is there. Like I had the information there, right? And then also when back in the days I used to do when I did a charity auction. Hey, that one was what? How was it? The auction block. Let me check the auction. So I've done these things before, right? When I did a charity auction back in
Was that your 800 names that you did?
No, I never really got around to really getting.
Well, let me tell you, I looked at that list and I was so impressed with those names.
The 800, yeah.
Those are really impressive.
Well, here's the thing: is like I had the bottom of my portfolio there, but then I also pumped it in some good domains because I wanted to make a sale, right? But then I posted on X once, and I never really followed up, and I made sales from that portion of my portfolio. So it's like I've been talking about doing that for like since before the pandemic, like 2019. I think I was going to do like a 800 domain auction, but no, that's not what I'm talking about. Like here, like you can also go to theauctionblock.com. So that's actually the charity auction I did back in 2020 with the domain social. But it wasn't just domains that were for sale. Like a lot of people put in like we had like a one-on-one time with Andrew Rosner or whatever, and like different stuff like that. But forget that part. Just look at the infrastructure. That's how I have it already ready to go. Right. It's just getting that critical mass on the platform where people can actually bid. Like my concern with X is with only 10 people who come on stage, how to really do it. And also, there's a lot of times people want to come up stage and they can't, right? So even if you, after every name that's sold, you put people back down in the audience and let people put their hands back up if they want to bid on the next name, you're going to have technical issues, right? And so, and you need to have a secondary platform where you do it. And it's possible, right? It's just, it's going to be work. Is it worth the effort?
Just like Name Pros, you're going to let people post that, and you're going to tell them it's increments of this. The minimum bid is $10 and the increments are $10.
Yeah.
and that's it. And we're going to be watching the chat because that's how the name,
Yeah.
and basically we're on this name. Of course, we would, if people were smart, you would tell them post the name and the bid, the name and the bid, because somebody will be bidding on a name that was 2 names ago and so on. It's interesting. I mean, I just love, people putting their money where their mouth is. And then also, because you have these names and you think, geez, I've had names for 15 years. I'll drop it or I'll see if anybody else wants it for $10. And then it makes me feel good about dropping it. No one even wanted it. Even if it's only 20 people, 20 domain investors.
Yeah.
But like I said, the rubber meets the road. You realize, yeah, so people really, it's cold water in the face. No one wanted this stuff, and you renewed it for 15 years. Maybe it was something back then, and there's a reason why you kept it. But and then, like I said, one person's trash is another person's treasure. And many times, the domain doesn't sell until it's in the second decade of ownership. And some of us are just tired. Like, we don't want to mess with these anymore. You heard Siger saying he doesn't want to mess with some of these names that he's flipping for $100, flipping for $800. He doesn't want it in his portfolio. It makes it, even though there may be a little bit of something there. Well, why not? Why would you want it if you bought it for 10 and you can sell it for? Doesn't want it. He just said he doesn't want it. All right.
Because he's selling domains for millions of
Yeah. Well, I
dollars,
mean,
right? So
but
for
the
him, it's
truth
not
is,
worth his time.
there's a lot of us anyway. So that's going to be it for today. 5 minutes before I got always on Thursday something to do at noon my time. I'm out here in LA. All right. So we do this every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be here next Thursday. Listen, we're going to have a great domain name law show. Got some good cases we're going to do next Tuesday. So if you want to, I don't care if you follow me or just know I'm ABC Productions on X. I post the links to these 2 shows. There's other spaces on X. I believe tomorrow NameFi does a space. Saturday, Ish is still doing a space this month, and then he's making some changes, moving over to YouTube. So check Ish out on Saturday morning. Monday night, Paige usually has something going on here, but like I said, a couple mainstays are the Domain Name Law Show on Tuesdays, the DNX Show on Thursdays. We're going to talk domains, and we will, even if it's a one-off, I'll do it, but I'm going to do some auction in maybe August or September. Just figure out exactly how I want to do it. And then, of course, like everyone, they do their own portfolio first because it's easy. I can transfer into it. But I like the idea of, you know, like I said, other people's names, no reserve. What do you got? And nothing new. We don't want any new, even though it could be a great new registration that was just, registered for the last 20 years and you got it on a drop. There's, something about having age names that I think would benefit early auctions before we start offering, recent hand registers. But all right, I appreciate you being here, Arif. Thanks, Brad, for joining in. And I appreciate, of course, Josh, my co-host, stopping in. He's on vacay. And then Mike Siger sharing all that he shared. Thanks for everybody for being here. Really, it's all you guys sticking around. So thank you. Have a good rest of your day wherever you're at.
You, Todd.
See you
Thank you,
later.
Eric. Thank you, Mike.
Yep. See
Take
you
care,
later here on
everyone.
X. Take care.